We may be 800 miles away from the nearest ocean, but if you happen to be in the Midwest, you could say it's not exactly out of your reach. Welcome to one of the world's premier exhibits, the Abbott Oceanarium. Since opening its doors nearly a century ago, the Shedd Aquarium has been a game changer in animal care and exhibitry. In the late 80s, they wanted to grow that reputation just a little more. With $45 million, they brought both the wilds and the environment of the Pacific Northwest to Chicago. In order to do this, they had to literally expand nearly 4 acres on top of Lake Michigan, not only doubling the size of what was the world's largest indoor aquarium, but it broke expectations and doubled their attendance. And we are here to see if it really lives up to that hype. So, is everyone ready? Good, let's begin. After passing the 40 theater and a gift shop, you should hear the sounds of the Northern Sea. The portal to the ocean is a quick descent through a natural-looking dense conifer forest that acts as one of the backdrops to what is still claimed as the world's largest indoor marine mammal pavilion. And tucked on the very edge of the forested Pacific shore are California sea lions, all of which are rescues and have access to this cove, several behind-the-scenes areas, and another pool that's normally held for the big animals beyond the waves. But first, on the right side of the stairway is an open estuary for a few cuttlefish. Now, before all of this, the largest animal at Shedd was a nurse shark. That would now be the beluga whale. You can meet them right at the railing and actually feel the mist when they breathe. And if they find you interesting enough, they'll stop where you are and they'll sing you their song. And that's only part of the fun. If you head down to the lower level, you'll also run into each other at the underwater view. When it comes to cetaceans, belugas are about as unique as they come. They lack a dorsal fin. They have flexible necks, are covered in a 4-inch thick layer of blubber, and despite their build, belugas are considered one of the world's smallest whales. Of the aquarium's pod of 8, their biggest is over 2,000 pounds, and their smallest weighed 140 when they were born. This is Atlas. He wasn't their first calf overall, but in August of 2020, he became the aquarium's first second-generation beluga calf. He looks a little different from the rest of them, and it's not just his size. Belugas are born dark gray and slowly lighten as they mature. We were told it's because they lack the thick, insulating layer of blubber, and they don't need it right away because mothers generally give birth during the summers where waters are relatively warmer. Of the Oceanarium's 3 million gallons, over 400,000 of it fills what they call the secluded bay, but they also have access to a med pool and a third space that's been blocked off on my later visits. And as we saw, it's all designed to make sure you'll never forget these moments. And that's just the beginning. Behind the underwater windows is the Polar Play Zone, a brief children's area decorated with an interactive submarine and 5 small circular tanks, where we saw shrimp, seahorses, sea stars, and floating moon jellies. That's all directly beneath the undersides of illuminating icebergs. The Oceanarium is dedicated to Pacific waters, but not entirely. Right here, the icy north becomes the icy south. The whales and dolphins might steal the spotlight, but I'm hoping you saw it was the penguins who stole the nation's attention during the pandemic. The name Icy South may have you thinking we just went from the Arctic to the Antarctic. Close, but this is based on the Falkland Islands, which are 300 miles east of South America's Patagonian coast and over 700 miles from Antarctica. And both southern rockhopper and Magellanic penguins number in the millions on those islands and the surrounding areas along South America's shoreline. Now, after you learn a bit more about the birds and stop by the playground if you can, You're in the next region, home to a pod of Pacific white-sided dolphins, also known by their shortened scientific name lags, one of the most active and athletic cetaceans. And if you've ever seen one, you know this behavior is far from subtle. So they make the most out of the greatest cetacean exhibit I've ever seen. The pool is 30 feet deep. You can barely see the other side, and it spans over 50% of the Oceanarium's entire length. They are always zooming by in front of your eyes at a quick speed, but they can get up to 25 miles per hour, which helps them propel themselves 20 feet in the air. These dolphins are pelagic, meaning they live in the open ocean. An estimated 1 million lags inhabit the Pacific temperate waters ranging from Asia to North America. A pod can consist of 10 to as many as 300 members, and the aquarium's pod is no stranger to growing the family. Just 10 days after the birth of Atlas, Cottrell welcomed Harmony to the world, bringing their pod total to a modest 5 members at the moment. Their popularity is overshadowed by the bottlenose, so I'm willing to bet many of you aren't too familiar with them. Well, at least in the US. The Shedd Aquarium is only one of 3 places to exhibit them, so this very well could be the last time we see the Pacific white-sided dolphin. The last of the lower floor takes you from the ocean's deep to its shallows. The fauna region is mostly made up of a plethora of touch tanks, but we're here for their always active Alaskan and southern sea otters. Now, this isn't the first time we've come across an otter exhibit with this design, but it is the first and maybe the only time we can watch them make their climbs and dives from both floor levels at the same time. If they wanted to, sea otters could spend their entire lives without ever stepping a paw on land. All they have to do is float on their backs and go with the current. But of course they gotta get off their backs and eat at some point. So they'll dive down, sometimes 300 feet, usually to the ocean floor, to look for just about anything with a shell. They'll eat at the surface and use their bellies as a table, but getting through those shells isn't always easy. If they can't use their teeth, sometimes they'll use rocks to break their obstacle to get to the meat. Shedd, last I read, is home to 4 and considered a sanctuary to 3 rescues, and you can read about their bittersweet stories in the comment below. At this point, you have a few options. You can follow the forest and return to the rest of the galleries, but I like to first go upstairs and take in the view. Then I head back down towards the tide pool, a natural looking touch tank full of crabs, sea cucumbers, and anemones. And next to that is another alcove, the dolphin's secondary pool that can also be seen below, and it's connected to the center stage. This is the whale harbor, where you can find the last of the 500-foot long wall of windows that just adds to this exhibit's natural effects by blending the waters of the Oceanarium with the horizon of Lake Michigan. The harbor is 180 feet across, 80 feet wide, and almost 2 million gallons. I've been told it's accessible to the belugas near closing, but it's the main home for the dolphins for the rest of the time. Like they do with the whales, the keepers will interact with them several times throughout the day, which usually involves feeding, target training, and other fun cognitive exercises. But that's only a preview of what you could see. This pool is part of the Rice Amphitheater that seats 1,000 lucky spectators. So if you ever see the blinds close, quickly grab a spot because that means it's showtime. The Aquatic Presentation shows off the animals in the most exciting ways possible. The keepers bring out the waddling penguins and sea lions right up to the fans in the first row. And this allows the dolphins to show why they're called the acrobats of the sea. And part of the fun is that it's not just all flips and tricks, but the trainers also give a small lesson in psychology and explain how they form bonds with the animals and how they ask them to perform these awesome behaviors. I'd show you the whole presentation, but we'll save it for another time. The Oceanarium opened in 1991, and it isn't just the Shedd Aquarium's top gallery, but from day one, it's been one of the world's must-see attractions that's inspired millions to love, respect, and learn more about the ocean's wonders. Be sure to come see this for yourself as soon as possible. Hit that subscribe button to follow our journeys through the country's other amazing exhibits, and as always, thank you for watching.